And just when you thought it couldn't get any better, Theresa May plans to head back to the EU with a tough job ahead of her. The UK Parliament voted for her to reopen negotiations and get a reworked Brexit deal. But the EU, well, the EU emphatically refuses to renegotiate. Joining us now from London is Yahoo Finance's Alana Petrov with more details. The EU goes back and forth, though. It flip-flops on whether it would negotiate or not, right?
Well, there is always room for renegotiation, but they want to renegotiate some key things that the EU really does not want to touch. So ultimately, when you think about it, Theresa May had 2 years to get her Brexit deal done. Now she's saying, give me 2 more weeks and I'm going to get a fresh Brexit deal. And the key sticking point for both sides is the Irish border. And if you hear about Brexit, you hear about the so-called backstop.
Right.
That relates to the Irish border. So where you have Northern Ireland on one side, Ireland on the other side. Ireland is part of the EU, and Northern Ireland is part of the UK. So with Brexit, there will be a land border separating the countries, separating the EU and the UK, and there's a lot of concern about that land border and keeping that land border open when the UK is hoping to have its own regulatory regime and its own customs plans. So that border is the crux of the issue, and there are lots of concerns about how the two sides can overcome this issue.
And of course, as we get closer and closer to the deadline, the odds are rising that there will be no deal, right? That you will have a so-called hard Brexit, a no-deal Brexit. Is that essentially what is at stake at this point? I mean, unless we see an extension of the deadline.
So the default option right now is a no-deal Brexit. In fact, Oxford Economics, you can see here, they said that the expectation for a no-deal Brexit is at 35%, and they don't think that Brexit will be taken off the table altogether. A no-Brexit scenario where the UK stays in the EU, just 5%. They do think that the likelihood of a deal is still high. That's what broadly a lot of analysts are saying. But for many, they have raised their expectations for a no-deal Brexit. And in that scenario, that would be deeply damaging to both the UK and the EU, as the EU is the UK's biggest trading partner by far for goods, services, imports, exports. It would be deeply damaging to both sides.
Pressure is on. Alana Petrov, thank you very much.